There's a reason that setting boundaries sometimes feels impossible. It's not just you. Avoiding the anxiety and the guilt in the sense that you're letting somebody down,
You're the bad guy.
may all seem like really good reasons just to keep putting off your own needs, just to keep the peace in your life.
You're the boss. Whatever you need, you got it.
This never works out in your favor long term. I've got something that I want to give you that I believe is going to supercharge your boundary setting ability and help to eliminate all of the negative emotions surrounding setting boundaries and protecting your peace and your energy for those that actually deserve it. In this chapter, I'm going to show you how you can find where your most needed boundaries should be, why you need them there, how to create them, and then how to uphold them. First things first. Why do we need boundaries? Well, in short, they make room for more of the right things in life. Boundaries are synonymous with exclusion, but they're really more like filters than walls. And it's really common not to be clear on where to set boundaries. So how do you do that? Let's consider the difference between an essential stress versus a non-essential stress. An essential stress, it's something that you need in your life for true fulfillment. Like if you stripped everything else away at this stage in your life, this source of stress would still be there because of the value that it's connected to. The benefit of having that in your life in the long run is worth so much more to you than just doing without the stress that comes with it. So in other words, it's worth the stress that it brings. Like I mentioned in chapter 1, these are things like raising your children or going back to college or taking a year to lose a substantial amount of weight. And it could be also something like starting a business or getting married or maybe having the unfortunate but often liberating experience of getting a divorce. A non-essential stress, on the other hand, is anything that you could remove from your life and you wouldn't really be any less fulfilled. And in most cases, it's the non-essential stresses that pull you away from the things that fulfill you. And in this video specifically, I'm focusing on interpersonal aspects. So this wouldn't be so much things that you do on your own, but things that you do for other people that is spreading you too thin, that's giving up something that you really don't need to be giving up and probably don't want to be giving up. And there are things that add to your total stress load, even when it seems like they're kind of like a reprieve from stress. And this may mean moving forward in life without certain things that you feel you need or should be doing. But the good news is for every one of these things that you do leave behind, there's a healthy version to replace it with. Defining the essential versus the non-essential creates clarity. It gives you conviction to uphold a new boundary once you set it, which is the number one most common problem area for people concerning boundaries, which we'll get into in a minute. I want to share a few prompts with you that will help you clarify why you need a boundary in a particular area of your life. This is how you build reason into your decision process of boundary setting. So question number 1 is a relief question, and it builds positive anticipation for what the boundary takes off of your plate. What will be absent from my life that I struggle with now when I have this boundary? This question enables you to draw out the freedoms that a boundary offers, and the most common benefits are things like less emotionality, less sense of obligation, less guilt from playing a role that isn't even you, less anxiety, less feelings of being stifled, less apathy when you'd like to be sharing positive emotions with people around you, less fatigue, and feeling less depleted. A question 2 is a positivity question, and it helps to clarify why this process is worth going through. And that question is, what will I have more of by having this boundary in my life? Here, the most common benefits are things like more time, more solitude, more energy, more thinking capacity, and a renewed sense of sovereignty or like a sense of self. And question 3 is an agreement question. In other words, like, what is your role in this boundary? What's required of me after setting this boundary in order to keep it and all that comes with it? With any position comes responsibility, and taking a leadership role in a new area of your life is really no different. So the most common expectations here are the willingness to be clear about your boundaries, and number 2, to forfeit the willingness to consider every boundary test an extenuating circumstance. Now, I said a lot in just a few words there, but what this means is you are recognizing that the discomfort of the first couple of times or several times upholding a boundary will actually fade. And like anything else in life, it'll become second nature. It'll become part of who you are because really it already is. And you're expressing it through behavior instead of just wishful thinking at this point. Let me give you an example. Let's say somebody comes to you and makes a request of you, asks you to do something for them. Maybe it's something you've done 1,000 times, and maybe it's something you've never done before. But the point is, what they're asking of you falls outside of the boundary that you've just set for yourself. Option one, you can agree to do that thing. And you can tell yourself, well, look, I just set this boundary. They didn't know, what I'm doing to work on this area of my life. I can help them out. And so you do it. But what have you done? You just taught yourself how to breach that boundary. And now it's just that much easier to breach that boundary in the future. And it's that much harder to reset that boundary, especially with this person. The other option is you can say, look, I can't do that. And you can do that in a few different ways. You can flat out say no. You could say, well, I'm not going to be able to do that whole thing, or I can't do it right now, but then you can give them a counteroffer, something that might be reasonable for both of you, something that doesn't include you breaching that boundary, but doesn't include them just getting the amount of you that they wanted just because they asked. And there are times where no matter what you can offer is not going to be what they're looking for. And it might seem like in that instance, you're not quite enough for them. Your needs and their needs just didn't align. And that's the most logical, down to earth, straightforward way to look at it. And the moment that emotions enter this, it starts to skew that perspective. And it starts to build a narrative that isn't really the truth. Whenever you set a boundary and somebody asks you to do something, especially if it's something you've done a lot before and they've just come to expect that of you, it's going to feel like that you're letting them down. In a situation where it's something that they've never asked of you, a lot of times it will feel like, well, this is like an extenuating, this is a special situation. Now, question number 4 is a test question. And when you can answer this question with a very committed, non-hesitant yes, you know you're ready to set this boundary. Is what I'll get and what I'll be free of worth what's required of me? In other words, is what I will get from setting this boundary, answer to question 2, and what I'll be free of by setting this boundary, answer to question 1, worth what's required of me, answer to question 3, in order to keep it in my life. And the secret here is that by the time you've gotten to this point, the answer is always yes. And that's not what you're testing. The question tests your clarity of purpose and your understanding for what positive ways that your life is going to change by having this boundary in your life. If you really feel like the answer is no, it's not the wrong boundary probably. You just need more confidence, which comes from better clarity of what ways you can keep this boundary in place. So it's not a decision issue, it's a clarity and a confidence issue. Now, I agree that thinking through a change is very different than living through it, but without this level of thought, it can be really easy to sink back into a cycle of just questioning yourself that keeps you from acting. These are questions that are actually designed to give you that clarity and the momentum to just like sail beyond that indecision that can turn into self-betrayal. When you anchor a reason for doing this to something that means more to you than just never having to be afraid, that's when you can start to really make some big changes. And that's also the definition of courage. Courage inspires really powerful emotions, but at its root, it's very logical because it's built on purpose. The act of setting boundaries is not really so much of an act at all. It's really more of like a plan of action. It's a commitment to a way of behaving in a very specific scenario. And in a sense, a boundary isn't truly set until it's upheld. There's something you can do though that will help you internalize that this process is really happening and you're progressing through it. And it's something you've actually already done. And you can do this a few different ways. You can write it down as like a statement of intent or a set of steps or just a simple word or phrase that you'll use in the type of situation that the boundary is for. You can rehearse the boundary out loud. So say the words you plan to use in real life. I wouldn't do it in front of the mirror. The reason why I say this is because if there's anything in your reflection that you are disproportionately in favor of looking at or not in favor of looking at, it's going to throw you off because you're going to focus on the thing that you want to look at about yourself instead of focusing on how you feel and how you're delivering the message, which is what the other person is going to get from you. And if it's something that you don't like about your reflection in the mirror, that's not going to do wonders for your confidence. And this rehearsal thing is all about building confidence and quelling anxiety that you might feel from delivering a not so favorable message to somebody that they didn't really want to hear, but you need for them to hear. You need to be able to focus on the kinesthetic aspect. In other words, how you feel when you're telling them whatever it is that you're saying. And you need to focus on the auditory aspect, which is how you sound when you're saying it. That is what's going to help create confidence, not looking at yourself in the mirror, trying to look confident in the mirror. And the third way is, all right, so I have to tell you a really short story about how I came to realize the power of this third way, and then I'll tell you what it is. Because if I tell you what it is first, I don't think it's going to have the punch that it will when I tell you how I learned it. When I first opened the wellness studio, I was not thinking about setting boundaries. Like, that's just not something I had spent much time thinking about at all. So I kind of threw myself in a fire because people I didn't want to turn down immediately started giving me opportunities to turn them down. And what I mean is this: I would get requests for extra time, like giving my personal time, for services, for special favors. And I had to either say yes and set the precedent with that person that they actually own that part of our working relationship, or I had to clarify that this was just beyond my allowance and it wasn't something that was going to happen. I got really comfortable really fast at upholding these boundaries simply because I was so often put in the position of hearing myself enforce them. And it very quickly became second nature because I couldn't help but hear my own example. So my accountability partners were the people I was upholding boundaries to, my clients, customers, because I didn't have the time or energy to say yes to everybody. The time and energy that I did have just got funneled to the people who respected that and respected me. And there were times that I was actually willing to go the extra mile for those people. And because of that, my business grew in reach and in impact, and because of that, in profit. So method 3 is the most effective method, and that is to enlist an accountability partner, someone you can like be yourself around, who gets you and what you're trying to do for yourself through this process. You need to ask them to just randomly create scenarios of asking and doing or expecting something of you that is going to exceed a particular boundary that you're creating. Okay. So this gives you the opportunities to act out enforcing it at random times. The more you experience this interaction, the more quickly it becomes second nature, and the less your nervous system like winces at engaging this passive defense that all boundaries require. And this is where a boundary gets solidified. So as soon as you have a few examples in your memory bank, the new of this boundary quickly wears off, and it's like you're confirming to your brain that this is indeed an acceptable course of action or conversation that needs to take place in response to a specific thing that warrants the boundary. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries are the first to feel punished by your presence of them. By setting and upholding your boundaries, you're going to identify the people in your life who support you and respect you from those who just want to use resources that you have, your energy, your attention, your time. And you're going to notice those people just begin to distance their needs or their wants from your time. They recognize that you're no longer as accessible, and they're just going to create that space. And it's something that you don't have to do. But here's the thing. People move in and out of other people's lives all the time. So I mean, think about this. How many people are you currently really close to that you were super close to more than 5 years ago? And I don't mean like blood relatives. I mean people that you just like organically met and actually bonded with. People often conflate length of time of acquaintance with closeness just because that person is familiar to them. If you've been close with someone for more than 5 years and you can't share like some really deep needs that you have, you're not that close to them. And this is actually what I'm talking about. So your part isn't making sure someone is okay with a new boundary. It's making sure they understand the why of the boundary. And beyond that, their response to your boundary is just their responsibility. Just about finished with it. After 20 years and nearly 1,000 private female clients, I wrote the book that I wish I could have given to them all along. And it reveals how we got so stressed as a society, what that stress is actually doing throughout the different body systems that are affected the most. And it gives you a concrete framework to resolve that stress. And that framework adjusts to what your personal needs are. And we're also building an app that's a daily companion, helping you identify your unique stress profile so you understand exactly what's actually driving your stress. And you can resolve it instead of just trying to blindly continue to manage it. I'm only giving access to those that I'm already in touch with. So if you're interested in being in the beta group that helps to shape the features of the app, or if you just want access to the book before it's full release, then if you haven't done so already, go ahead and sign up through the link below, and let's stay in touch. There's something I left out. I wanted to make it all in one video, but I really wasn't sure that that was the right thing to do. Throughout this whole video, we've been talking about external boundaries. If you waver on the inside, you're definitely going to waver on the outside. So do yourself a favor and watch the next video in this series where I go over everything about internal boundaries and how to set and keep them.